when a privileged high school bully calls his cop daddy to arrest a new black girl for defiance, he sets in motion a chain of events that will shatter his family's world, because the girl he just had handcuffed is the daughter of the most powerful judge in the state. Subscribe to see how one act of arrogance unravels a life of privilege. The rain lashed against the windows of Lincoln High, turning the afternoon into a gloomy twilight. In the bustling hallway between periods, the usual chaos reigned. At the center of it, like a king holding court, was Kyle Donovan. His Letterman jacket, a symbol of his family's curated legacy, was as much a uniform as his father's police blues. Kyle was holding a basketball, spinning it on his finger, holding court. His audience, a group of eager juniors and hangers-on, laughed at a crude joke about the chemistry teacher. The ecosystem of the school hallways was one Kyle understood completely. He was at the top. Everyone else fell into categories of useful, invisible, or target. Maya Thorne moved through that same hallway with a different kind of purpose. She was new, having arrived just 3 weeks prior, a quiet storm in a school of predictable weather. She carried a worn copy of The Bluest Eye and a calculus textbook, her headphones a visible but polite barrier. Her father, a stern but kind man with a penetrating gaze, had told her to keep a low profile, to observe, to learn the terrain before making any moves. "Not everyone needs to know your business, Maya," he'd said. She was used to being the new girl. Her father's career had meant moving more than once. She had developed a radar for trouble. And as she passed Kyle's group, that radar pinged loudly. Kyle's basketball, whether by accident or a nudge from his own hand, bounced away from his circle and rolled directly into Maya's path. She stopped it with her foot, picked it up, and looked toward the group. Kyle sauntered over, a smirk playing on his lips. "Thanks," he said, though it sounded more like command. He held out his hand, not for the ball, but in a gesture that expected it to be placed there. Maya met his eyes. They were a cold blue, the color of a shallow lake. "You're welcome," she said, her voice calm. Instead of handing it to him, she passed it in a gentle arc toward one of his friends, who fumbled to catch. It was a subtle thing. A ripple went through his group. Kyle smirked didn't fade. It hardened. "New girl, right? Maya, you should know how things work around here. When someone like me needs something, someone like you doesn't play games." "I wasn't playing a game," Maya said, adjusting her backpack strap. "I was returning your property." "It's been returned." She made a move around him. Kyle shifted, blocking her path. "I think you need to apologize for the attitude." "I don't," Maya said simply, her patience thinning. She could feel eyes on them, the hallway's energy shifting from general noise to focused spectacle. "Please move." "Or what?" Kyle chuckled, leaning in. "You gonna call your daddy? What does he do, huh? Does he mow lawns around here?" The racial jab, lazy and predictable, landed in the silence. Maya's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, from defensive to immovable. "My father is a public servant. Now, for the last time, move, or I will report you for harassment." Kyle laughed, a loud, performative sound. "Harassment? That's a big word. You hear that, guys? I'm harassing her by asking for my ball back." He turned back to her, his face now just inches from hers. "You know what? I've changed my mind. I don't want an apology. I want you to get out of my sight. But since you love public service so much, let's get you some real interaction with it." He pulled out his phone, a sleek new model, and dialed with exaggerated slowness on hers. "Hey, Dad. Yeah, at school. There's a situation. A student is being aggressive, threatening, refusing to comply. I feel unsafe." "Yeah, she's right here. Maya Thorne." He listened, a triumphant gleam in his eye. "Okay, see you soon." He ended the call. "My father is Deputy Chief Donovan. He's on his way. Hope that attitude is worth it." Maya felt a cold anger settle in her stomach. She didn't say another word. She simply leaned against a locker, took out her own phone, and sent a quick text. The wait was tense, the hallway now a theater. Teachers peeked out of classrooms, but, recognizing potential for a confrontation with the Donovan family, seemed hesitant to intervene fully. Within 10 minutes, The electric buzz of walkie-talkies preceded the arrival of Deputy Chief Brendan Donovan. He was a larger, older version of Kyle, his uniform pressed to a razor's edge, his demeanor one of unquestioned authority. He didn't look at Maya as a student. He looked at her as a problem. Kyle launched into his version of events, painting Maya as an instigator, a violent agitator. She shoved me, Dad, and then threatened me when I asked for my ball back. Brendan Donovan finally turned his gaze to Maya. Is that true, young lady? No, sir, it is not, Maya said, her voice clear. He blocked my path, made racially charged comments, and is now lying to you. Watch your tone, Brendan said sharply. I have a credible witness, my son, reporting a threat. You are coming down to the station for questioning regarding assault and making threats. Turn around. The gasp from the gathered students was audible. Maya's calculus teacher, Mr. Henderson, stepped forward. Chief Donovan, surely this can be handled through the school office? Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Brendan cut him off, his voice leaving no room for debate. This is a police matter now. He produced handcuffs. The metallic click as they closed around Maya's wrists was the loudest sound in the suddenly silent hall. Kyle's smile was one of pure, unadulterated victory. He watched as his father led the proud, silent black girl away, her head held high, the image of humiliation he had craved. It was the peak of his power. The processing at the precinct was a study in cold procedure. Maya was fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. She refused to answer any questions without a lawyer present, a statement that made the arresting officer, a younger man who seemed uncomfortable, nod and back away. Brendan Donovan, from behind the glass of his office, watched her. There was a steadiness to her that unnerved him. It wasn't the fear or bluster he was used to. It was a quiet, simmering certainty. He pushed the feeling down. He was protecting his son. That was his job as a father and as an officer. An hour after her arrest, the atmosphere in the precinct changed. First, it was the arrival of a sleek, black sedan that didn't park in visitor parking, but right at the front entrance. The man who stepped out was in his 50s, wearing an impeccably tailored suit that spoke of authority far beyond the municipal. His expression was granite. He was accompanied by a severe-looking woman carrying a briefcase. They walked into the precinct not as petitioners, but as assessors. The desk sergeant looked up, and his blood ran cold. He had seen Judge Harold Thorne's picture in the law journals, at Bar Association events. He was a state appellate court judge, known for his intellect, his unforgiving scrutiny of police procedure, and his unwavering moral compass. Sergeant. Judge Thorne's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room's noise. My daughter, Maya Thorne, was brought here approximately 1 hour and 7 minutes ago. I am here as her parent and her legal counsel. I want to see her now, and I want to see the arresting officer and the arrest report. Immediately, the sergeant scrambled, his face pale. He buzzed them back. As Judge Thorne walked through the bullpen, every officer stiffened. He found Maya in the holding cell, sitting on the bench, reading her book. When she saw her father, she finally let the mask slip, just for a second, revealing the hurt and anger beneath. Hey, Dad. The cell door was open before the judge even had to ask. He embraced his daughter, then turned to the now terrified sergeant. The arrest report. Now, and I want Deputy Chief Donovan in an interrogation room. I will be speaking with him. Brendan Donovan, summoned from his office, entered interrogation room 2, expecting to find a defense attorney. He found Judge Harold Thorne sitting alone at the table. The air left Brendan's lungs. Your Honor, I had no idea. That, Judge Thorne said, placing his palms flat on the table, is the most damning part of this entire fiasco, Deputy Chief. You had no idea who she was, so you thought this was acceptable procedure. You took the word of your teenage son over a young woman with no record, and you applied the full weight of your office to publicly humiliate and incarcerate her. You did not review hallway security footage. You did not interview impartial witnesses. You saw a black girl who talked back, and you saw a chance to flex your power for your son's amusement. Do I have the sequence of events correct? Brendan could only stand, his mind racing through the consequences. His career, which he had built with such care, was crumbling in front of him. "Judge, it was a misunderstanding." Kyle felt threatened. "Your son is a bully," Judge Thorne interrupted, his voice still lethally calm. "And you are his enabler wearing a badge. You have violated my daughter's civil rights, the public trust, and about a dozen departmental protocols. This is not going away with a misunderstanding. You are suspended, effective this moment. The district attorney will be reviewing this case for criminal charges against you for false arrest and against your son for filing a false police report. Now, you will go out there, you will process my daughter's unconditional release, and you will pray that I decide the appropriate remedy is merely the end of your career and not a personal lawsuit that leaves you and your family destitute." The walk back to the bullpen was the longest of Brendan Donovan's life. Every officer avoided his gaze. He processed Maya's release with trembling hands. As Judge Thorne led Maya out, she paused, looking not at Brendan, but at Kyle, who had been called down to the station by his frantic mother, and was now witnessing his father's professional annihilation from the waiting area. Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply looked at him, and in that look was a lesson about power, real power, that Kyle was only beginning to understand. The fallout was swift and brutal. The story, leaked to press, became a national headline. Deputy Chief arrests judge's daughter in school bullying incident. The narrative wrote itself. Privilege, abuse of power, racial dynamics. Brendan Donovan was not just suspended. He was forced to resign. The DA, under intense scrutiny, did file charges against Kyle for filing a false report, a move that sent shockwaves through the community. Kyle was no longer the golden boy. He was a pariah, facing juvenile court. The family's reputation was in tatters. Their friends vanished. Brenda Donovan, Kyle's mother, a woman who had curated their social standing with meticulous care, filed for divorce, unable to bear the shame. But the real twist, the dramatic turn that no one saw coming, came 6 months later. The criminal cases were proceeding, but Judge Thorne had also filed a massive civil rights lawsuit against the city and Brendan Donovan personally. The discovery process was digging deep, and it uncovered something. Maya, determined to ensure no one else suffered at the hands of the Donovans, had done her own digging. She talked to students, to former classmates from Kyle's middle school years. She heard whispers about a girl, Sarah Gable, who had transferred schools years ago after a relentless campaign of bullying from Kyle. Sarah had been hospitalized for anxiety. With the help of a relentless investigative reporter on the story, Maya tracked Sarah down. Sarah, now in college, was initially terrified to speak. But Maya's calm persuasion and the fact that the mighty Donovan family was already falling gave her courage. Sarah revealed that Kyle's bullying hadn't just been verbal. He had stolen intimate photos from her phone and shared them. A minor at the time, it was child pornography. Brendan had known. Sarah's parents had gone to him, and Brendan had not filed a report. Instead, he had threatened them, suggesting their daughter's promiscuity would be exposed in any investigation. He had used his badge to cover up his son's crime, forcing Sarah's family to move away in silence. This new evidence was a nuclear bomb. It turned Brendan's malfeasance from abuse of power to a felony cover-up. When presented in civil deposition, Brendan broke completely. He confessed, sobbing to the cover-up. The DA now had him for obstruction of justice and accessory to the distribution of child sexual abuse material. At Brendan's sentencing hearing, Judge Thorne, having recused himself from all official proceedings, sat in the gallery with Maya. A different judge presided. Sarah Gable gave a victim impact statement that left the courtroom in tears. When it was Brendan's turn to speak, he was a broken man. He turned not to the judge, but to where Maya and her father sat. "I am sorry," he said, his voice raw. "I am so sorry. I failed as an officer. I failed as a father. I created a monster, and I used my power to protect him. I deserve every punishment I get." He then looked directly at Maya. "And to you, Miss Thorne, you were right. About everything. Your father must be very proud to have a daughter of such principle. I am ashamed." Kyle, facing his own sentencing for false report and the new, much more serious charges, was a shell of his former self. The cocky grin was gone, replaced by a sullen, terrified stare. The system he thought was his playground was now a machine grinding him down. He was tried as a juvenile, but the charges ensured he would be in a detention facility until he was at least 21, with a permanent sex offender registration looming over his future. In the end, the bully who called his cop father to arrest a new black girl had succeeded only in arresting his own future and that of his father. The power they thought was unassailable was revealed to be a hollow facade, brittle enough to be shattered by the quiet dignity of a girl who knew her own worth and the unwavering principle of father who served true justice. Maya Thorne graduated at the top of her class the following year. She gave the valedictorian speech. She did not mention the Donovans by name. She spoke about the nature of true strength, the courage of silence in the face of provocation, and the importance of a justice system that must be blind to privilege. The entire audience, including the school administrators who had once been too afraid to intervene, rose in a standing ovation. As she left the stage, she glanced at the empty space in the senior photos where Kyle Donovan's portrait would have been. It was a void, a quiet testament to the fact that some storms, once wash away the very ground you stand on. Where are you watching this story from? Let us know which part of the country you're joining us from in the comments below.